When I was broke, I signed my wife's family's prenup without hesitation. Years later, after I built real wealth, she cheated, and suddenly her parents demanded I tear up the prenup so she could take half. They didn't expect the broke guy to be the one holding all the power. Hello Reddit I+ here. My name is Daniel Mercer, and this is not a story I ever imagined telling, but it's time. Not for pity, not for advice. I just need to get it out of my system. I was 27 when I met Claire Whitmore. I was working as a systems analyst at a small firm in Dallas, fresh out of grad school, drowning in student debt, and sharing a one-bedroom apartment with two other guys. Claire, on the other hand, came from money. Her parents owned a regional chain of high-end grocery stores, lived in a gated community, and held fundraisers with city council members and senators. She was dazzling, charismatic, and to my surprise, interested in me. For a while, it felt like a dream. We dated for a year, and everything felt golden. But when we started talking about marriage, the fairy tale cracked. Her father, Richard Whitmore, and her mother, Elaine, sat me down and introduced a new character into our relationship, a prenuptial agreement. Richard called it standard protocol for their family, meant to protect Claire and the family legacy. He wasn't hostile, just cold, calculating. He made it clear they didn't think I brought anything to the table financially. I was, in his words, a good young man, but unproven. They offered to help by assigning me a lawyer. One of their family firms recommended professionals. The guy was polished, friendly, but made zero effort to negotiate in my favor. I couldn't afford my own legal counsel, not with wedding deposits flying and pressure mounting. The prenup was brutal. No claims on Claire's inheritance or family businesses. No right to any marital assets acquired from my own income or investments. Alimony? Waived completely. Everything I earned was mine, and everything she had or ever would have stayed hers. I signed. I was in love, and I was broke. The first few years were tight, as expected. I kept my day job while working nights and weekends building an analytics software startup. Claire supported me. Verbally, at least. She worked part-time, then eventually stopped altogether to manage the home once I started making traction. I poured everything into the business. Every spare dime, every sleepless night. It wasn't overnight success, but it was mine. After 5 years, we had contracts with national chains and interest from major investors. I quit my day job and went full throttle. By our 10th anniversary, I was worth more than $12 million. I bought us a 5-bedroom home in Plano. Claire went from clearance racks to Chanel. Her parents, once patronizing, suddenly invited me into their business talks, asking my advice, talking investments. They never once brought up the prenup again. We had wealth, comfort, appearances, but not love. Claire and I barely spoke outside logistics. She was more interested in weekend brunches and social galas than the late-night excitement of launching a new product. We lived in the same house, but in two different worlds. I started noticing the red flags, hidden messages, secretive phone calls, sudden interest in volunteer events she never mentioned before. Eventually, I found out the truth from a mutual acquaintance. Claire was having an affair with a man named Graham Heller, a trust fund baby. His family owned vineyards in California. He was married. Her escape plan? Leave me, take half my fortune, and live a carefree life on my dime while Graham figured things out with his wife. Before I even filed for divorce, Richard and Elaine requested a meeting. It was like walking into a hostile negotiation dressed as a Sunday brunch. Richard admitted they were aware of Claire's indiscretions, but quickly turned the conversation to the prenup. It's outdated, he said, pacing their mahogany-floored living room. You're no longer the broke kid we once worried about. You've built a legacy. Claire's stood by your side for over a decade. It's only fair she receives her share. Claire sat quietly, expressionless. Then came the ask. They wanted me to tear up the prenup. Richard suggested we either void it or replace it with a modern, equitable agreement, one that granted Claire access to half of everything I now owned. He claimed I owed it to her for the sacrifices she made. Sacrifices? She hadn't lifted a finger toward the business. She ran the house with a cleaner, a chef, and a private yoga instructor, all paid for by me. Claire never apologized, never even acknowledged the affair. She just said, "Things have changed. The prenup doesn't reflect our life anymore." I stood up from their Italian leather armchair and looked Richard in the eye. I didn't write that agreement. You did. You shoved it in my face when I had nothing. You wanted to protect your daughter from me. And now, because I outgrew your expectations, you want to reverse it? Claire said softly. It's just paper, Daniel. It doesn't reflect the life we've built. I laughed bitterly. No, Claire. It reflects exactly the life we've built. You made sure I would never have a claim on your family's money. I respected that. And now, you're not getting a cent from mine. Richard's face turned red. He warned me about long, public legal battles, and said their lawyers would challenge the validity of the prenup in court. I simply said, try. I filed for divorce 2 days later. My legal team submitted the prenup alongside evidence of Claire's affair, backed by messages and eyewitness accounts. Richard and Elaine tried to have the prenup invalidated on grounds of inequity and changed circumstances. The judge wasn't buying it. They had insisted on the agreement, forced their own lawyer on me, and it had been signed voluntarily and notarized. Claire had cheated. I had built everything post-marriage, with no input or financial help from her or her family. After 6 months of legal posturing, the divorce was finalized. Claire walked away with nothing but her personal belongings and the car I gifted her years ago. No alimony, no stake in my business, no slice of my success. It's been a year since then. I'm still growing my company, but with better work-life balance. I bought a lake house and spend weekends fishing, reading, living slowly. People say revenge is best served cold. I didn't need revenge. All I needed was the very document they once used to protect themselves from me, to protect me from them. And now, Claire's back living with her parents, still waiting for Graham to leave his wife. Funny how life works. Moral? Be careful what you demand when someone is at their lowest, because one day, they just might rise higher than you ever imagined. I thought it was over. The ink on the divorce papers was barely dry when Claire came swinging back, with a vengeance. She filed a civil suit claiming I had coerced her into signing the prenup under emotional duress. Her lawyer alleged I'd used my financial desperation and charm to manipulate her into a one-sided marriage agreement. The same agreement her own parents drafted. The same agreement their lawyer walked me through. At first, I thought it was laughable, until I got the court summons. Then came the media spin. Somehow, her PR-savvy cousin, who worked in local media, got wind of the lawsuit. Suddenly, blogs and gossip columns were publishing headlines like, "Tech millionaire exploited innocent wife with ruthless prenup. Stay-at-home spouse battles, cold-hearted CEO for fair share." They painted Claire as the devoted wife who gave up her career, her youth and her womb, for a man who tossed her aside the moment he got rich. The narrative was pure fiction, but effective. People believed it. Investors started calling. Employees whispered. Potential partnerships backed off. I was being tried in the court of public opinion. I wasn't going down like that. I hired a new legal team, this time, top tier. We weren't just going to defend the prenup. We were going to expose everything. We dug up bank records showing secret transfers from our joint accounts to pay for lavish gifts Claire gave her lover. Surveillance footage from private clubs and hotels where they met. A private investigator's report detailing over a dozen documented meetups over a 9-month period, including a luxury weekend she spent with him while claiming to be on a mental health retreat. But the game changer? A recording. 6 months before the affair surfaced, Claire had a drunken girls' night with one of her old college friends, who happened to be dating my head of HR. Unknowingly recorded while on speaker, Claire boasted, "Of course I married him with a prenup. Daddy made sure of it. But now he's loaded, and I'm gonna take my damn slice. One way or another. Don't worry. I'll find a way to tear it up when the time's right." She laughed about keeping the affair a secret, hinted at stashing away exit money, and even joked about how idiots like Daniel don't think wives know their way around shell companies. That recording sank her case. Once my legal team submitted the audio and documents to the court, Claire's lawsuit disintegrated. But the real punishment came when the media flipped the script. Headlines now read, "Lying housewife tried to con CEO with fake abuse claims. Prenup queen turns out to be gold-digging cheat. Recording exposes plot to steal millions from tech founder." Claire's name became toxic. Her social circle, once filled with wine nights and country clubs, ghosted her. Friends deleted her on social media. The man she cheated with dumped her within a week of the fallout. He didn't want the drama. His wife filed for divorce and cleaned him out. Public humiliation all around. Meanwhile, I filed a defamation countersuit. The malicious smear campaign she launched nearly damaged my company. We settled out of court, but only after she publicly retracted her claims and issued a formal apology, which I required to be published in Forbes Local and Dallas Business Review. It was my turn to be cold. 3 months after everything, Claire requested one last meeting. She looked like a shadow of herself, gaunt, tired, her designer outfit unable to mask the weight of her mistakes. "I just wanted to say I never thought it would end like this," she said, staring down at her untouched coffee. I said nothing. I was scared. My whole life, I was told to marry rich, secure a future. But you changed. You became something I couldn't control. I finally spoke. "No, Claire, I became something you didn't believe I ever could be." She asked if there was any chance we could talk again someday, maybe as friends. I stood up, dropped a $20 bill on the table and replied, "Tell your parents they're protection plan worked perfectly. They protected you from my poverty, and they protected me from your greed. Then I walked away. To anyone reading this, be cautious when people only value your potential after it becomes profitable. And if someone tries to control your future from the beginning, they were never planning to build it with you. They were planning to benefit from you, and they'll hate you when you don't let them.